Anderson Cooper, AC 360, CNN weeknights 10 Eastern.
In Western medicine, the kind of medicine that I practice, we are used to counseling patients, running tests, prescribing medicine, and if necessary, performing operations. But in a small town in Brazil, a man named John of God is practicing a very different kind of medicine. He says he's a faith healer, and people from all over the world flock to see him. He claims to be able to heal very sick patients without even touching them. John of God was recently featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and this month's issue of O Magazine featured an article about him that was written by the magazine's editor-in-chief, Susan Casey. She met John of God. She was counseled by him, and Dr. Jeff Rediger, a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, actually witnessed John of God's healing. I spoke with both of them earlier this evening. So, Susan, let's start with you. You went down to Brazil on assignment from the magazine to see what all the hype was about. Now, as a journalist, obviously, you try to be objective. You must have had some sort of preconceived notion going into this.
Well, I was just curious. I was plain and simple, incredibly curious, because when I had first heard of John of God, there was always an aura of respect and, the gravitas around it. It was clear that he had helped tremendous amounts of people already, and I wanted to know, really, even if one person who was in some way terminally ill and couldn't be helped in conventional ways had been helped by this man, really, what was going on? So to me, as a journalist, that was what impelled me down there.
I was sorry to hear about the loss of your dad quite suddenly, just 2 years, I think, if I have the numbers correct, just 2 years before going to see John of God. You talked about that you still, obviously, were carrying a lot of emotional weight around. Were you hoping to get some kind of healing as well?
Well, I feel like in a story like this, one of the best things that I could do for the readers would be to take them through the process, and actually going through it myself was one way to do that. So yes, absolutely, I think when I heard his name and something kind of clicked with me, that was because I was seeking help myself, and I really felt as though I was in a hole that I couldn't get out of alone, and he definitely helped me.
Jeff, Doctor, like Susan experienced, many of the healing rituals John of God practices are so-called psychic surgeries, psychic operations, where he purportedly operates on a patient without touching them. But I understand there are some hands-on procedures as well. Jeff, is that right? Eye scraping, nasal probing, is that right?
That's right.
Can you just describe what you saw, Jeff?
Well, that was certainly something I was very interested to observe. A number of people told me down there that they believed they had sustained a healing from that kind of experience. And I was skeptical. I think that if people do have healings from that, that is a result of belief, and it does illustrate perhaps the power of belief, but physiologically that's possible. It's possible for the human body to take an instrument into the nose, probably 4 inches or so.
You probably did a lot of reading on this like I did. I mean, a lot of people out there claim that these types of things that John of God are doing is just quackery, just sleight of hand. I mean, are they even scraping the cornea when they do this?
I do believe that some of what goes on down there is sleight of hand. I also believe, however, there are things that happen that cannot be explained by sleight of hand. So I have come to believe somewhat reluctantly and with difficulty figuring out how to accommodate this in my worldview, that the world is a more mysterious place than I had understood.
I approach this from my background, obviously, as a neurosurgeon. I find it intriguing. I want to read something that you said while you were in Brazil. You said, quote, "It's asking a lot of people to believe that this man is able to do this, but at the same time, it appears that he is." Like Jeff, maybe in some ways, it's just hard for me to believe. It's not just, thinking that it's woo-woo, just being skeptical. You talked about being transformed in some ways. I mean, what do you make of this, and what is the message you think for other people?
Well, I agree with Jeff that the world is a mysterious place, and just because we don't understand something doesn't mean it's not happening, and just because we can't explain it doesn't mean it's not happening. And there is a lot of power in something like love and something like faith. People have taken for centuries on faith the power of prayer in a sort of a way that people know. So I don't really think that you need to, one way or another, prove or disprove that this is going on. I think all in our hearts we know there's more out there than we can actually explain. And maybe 100 years from now, energy healing will be one of the forefronts of medicine.
The concern, obviously, Susan, and I'll ask you as well, Jeff, is that I agree. I mean, there are a lot of things out there that we don't understand, but the consequences of sometimes going with something despite understanding it or despite being able to prove it, might have some dangers. I mean, I understand, Jeff, for example, I understand John of God tells his patients to continue on with their doctor-prescribed treatments. I think that's a good thing, but could John of God be endangering people by possibly giving them false hope?
That wasn't how I perceived the environment there. I don't know what the danger is in false hope. And let's just say some of this is a placebo effect and has to do with the force of belief of an individual. Is that bad? I mean, there is, as far as I could tell, and I didn't find in my research, instances of infection, instances of things gone wrong. I think not everybody gets the sort of happy, perfect ending that they might hope for. And my own personal experience was that it was a powerful thing and a very good thing. And I'd like to hear what Jeff thought of it, but I can't see anything bad about what's going on there myself.
And Jeff, I'll let you weigh in on that, but let me ask you as well, as a Harvard-trained doctor, did you look at scans of people or try and do medical confirmations of some of these things as well?
Yes, I did. I went down there after initially resisting the idea of going down there and just tried to see what was true. I tried to collect CT scans, laboratory tests and data from before and after these healing events just to see what the evidence said was going on. I do believe that this kind of research is complicated.
Yeah, and I think Susan makes a good point. I mean, just because we can't always explain things doesn't make them not true. But to be real honest about that, I think is very important. A respected physician, Dr. Rediger, Susan, a respected journalist, a very important topic. I'm glad you could both weigh in it. Thank you very much. I'm honestly not sure what to make of all this in some ways, but maybe it's something I should see for myself to try and better understand what's happening here. Susan Casey, Dr. Jeff Rediger, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.